If you are drinking your 8 glasses of water every day and still waking up with a dry mouth, still feeling foggy by mid-afternoon, still getting muscle cramps at night, still noticing your skin looks thin and papery no matter how much you drink, stop. Because the problem is not how much water you are drinking. The problem is that after 60, water alone is not enough, and nobody told you that. Right now, across America, there are millions of seniors doing exactly what they were told, 8 glasses a day. Some of them are doing 10. They carry water bottles, they set reminders on their phones, they are disciplined and consistent and genuinely trying to take care of themselves. And they are still chronically dehydrated at the cellular level, not because they are doing it wrong, but because the rules changed when they turned 60 and nobody updated them. What I am going to share with you today explains exactly why this happens, what is actually going on inside the cells of an aging body when water goes in but dehydration stays, and what you can do about it that is simple, inexpensive, and starts working within days. Stay with me, because the third thing on today's list is the one that surprises people most, and it is something almost every senior over 70 is missing without knowing it. Before we go further, drop a comment and tell me your age and where you are watching from. And if you're serious about protecting your health after 60, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I share information like this every single week that your doctor simply does not have time to cover in a standard appointment. Let me tell you about Gerald. Gerald was 72 years old, a retired engineer from Ohio, meticulous about everything. He tracked his water intake in a notebook, 8 glasses minimum, every single day, for years. He was proud of it. He told his doctor at every appointment. His doctor told him he was doing great. What Gerald could not explain was why he kept waking up at 3 in the morning with leg cramps so severe they made him gasp. Why his thinking felt slower in the afternoon, no matter how well he slept. Why his mouth felt dry even an hour after finishing a full glass of water. His doctor ran standard blood work. Everything looked normal. Gerald was told he was healthy. Gerald was not healthy. Gerald was dehydrated at the cellular level, despite drinking more water than most people half his age. Comment Gerald if this sounds like your experience. Because what happened to Gerald is happening to millions of people, and it comes down to 3 changes in the aging body that almost nobody explains clearly. The first is this: after 60, the sensation of thirst becomes significantly less reliable. This is not a small change. Research published in the Journal of Gerontology has documented that older adults experience a measurable blunting of the thirst mechanism, the biological signal that tells your brain your cells need water. Younger adults feel thirsty when their body water drops by about 1 to 2%. Older adults often do not feel thirsty until the deficit is 3 to 5%. By that point, the effects on cognition, circulation, and kidney function are already measurable. This means that if you are waiting to feel thirsty before you drink, you are already behind. The warning system that worked perfectly for 50 years has changed, and if nobody told you that, you have been operating with faulty information. The second change is more fundamental and more surprising. After 60, the body's ability to actually move water into the cells, not just into the bloodstream, but into the individual cells where hydration actually happens, begins to decline. This is related to something called aquaporins. Aquaporins are specialized protein channels embedded in cell membranes. Think of them as tiny doorways. Water does not simply pass through cell walls freely, it moves through these doorways. And as we age, the number and efficiency of these channels decreases. The doors get fewer and slower. What this means in practical terms is that you can drink 8 glasses of water, have it absorbed into your digestive tract, circulate through your bloodstream, and still have cells that are not receiving adequate hydration because the transfer mechanism into the cell itself has become less efficient. The water is in the building, but it cannot get into the rooms. This is why so many seniors drink what appears to be plenty of water and still carry the symptoms of dehydration. The problem is not volume, the problem is cellular uptake. Here is where this gets specific and actionable. Water does not move into cells on its own. It moves in response to electrolytes, specifically the balance of sodium, potassium, and magnesium on either side of the cell membrane. This balance is called the osmotic gradient, and it is what pulls water through those aquaporin channels and into the cell. When that electrolyte balance is off, when sodium is too high or potassium and magnesium are too low, water cannot enter the cell efficiently, regardless of how much you drink. It pools in the bloodstream, gets filtered by the kidneys, and leaves the body as urine. You drink more, you urinate more. The cells stay dry. This is the hidden mechanism behind what I call the senior hydration trap, and it explains something that most people find surprising when they first hear it. Drinking too much plain water, without adequate electrolytes, can actually make cellular dehydration worse, not better. Because large volumes of plain water dilute the sodium in your bloodstream, which disrupts the osmotic gradient even further, making it harder for water to enter cells and easier for the kidneys to excrete it. This is not theoretical. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that in older adults, electrolyte-assisted hydration improved cellular water retention significantly more than equivalent volumes of plain water. The cells were better hydrated with less total fluid, when that fluid carried what the cells actually needed to absorb it. Now let me tell you what the 3 things are that most seniors over 60 are consistently low in, and why it matters more than the number of glasses they drink. The first is potassium. Potassium is the primary electrolyte inside your cells. It is what the osmotic gradient on the cellular side depends on. When potassium is low, and it is chronically low in the majority of American seniors, water cannot enter the cell efficiently. The doorway is open, but there is nothing on the other side pulling it through. Most people associate potassium with bananas, and bananas do contain potassium, but after 60, dietary intake alone is often insufficient to maintain the levels that aging cells require, particularly if you are on a diuretic for blood pressure, which actively depletes potassium faster than food can replace it. Diuretics are among the most commonly prescribed medications for seniors over 65. If you are on one and nobody has specifically discussed your potassium levels and your hydration in the same conversation, that gap matters. The second missing piece is magnesium. Magnesium works alongside potassium to regulate what goes in and out of cells. It also plays a direct role in the function of the aquaporin channels themselves, the doorways we talked about. Without adequate magnesium, those channels operate less efficiently, regardless of how much potassium is present. Magnesium deficiency is extraordinarily common after 60, for several reasons. The gut absorbs it less efficiently with age. Stress depletes it. Several common medications, including PPIs for acid reflux and certain blood pressure medications, reduce magnesium levels over time. And most standard blood panels do not measure cellular magnesium, only serum magnesium, which can appear normal while the cells themselves are depleted. The third piece, and this is the one that surprises people most, is sodium. Specifically, not getting enough of it. In a generation of seniors who were told for decades to reduce sodium for their heart, many have gone so far in the other direction that their sodium levels are now too low to support healthy cellular hydration. Sodium is what the osmotic gradient depends on outside the cell. Without adequate sodium in the bloodstream, the gradient collapses and cellular water uptake becomes inefficient, regardless of potassium or magnesium levels. This does not mean pouring salt on everything. It means that for many seniors, particularly those who are very disciplined about a low sodium diet and also experiencing symptoms of dehydration, a modest, controlled increase in sodium intake, combined with potassium and magnesium support, can resolve a hydration problem that 8 glasses of water a day never touched. This is the conversation most doctors do not have time to have in a 15-minute appointment, and yet it explains the symptoms of millions of people who are doing everything they think is right and still feel dehydrated, foggy, cramped, and exhausted. I want to be specific about why this matters, beyond just feeling thirsty or getting cramps, because the long-term consequences of chronic cellular dehydration after 60 are serious and largely invisible until they are not. The kidneys depend on adequate cellular hydration to filter blood efficiently. When cells are chronically underhydrated, the kidneys compensate by concentrating urine more aggressively, which over time increases the risk of kidney stones, urinary tract infections, and progressive kidney function decline, one of the most common and underappreciated health problems in adults over 70. The brain is approximately 75% water by weight. Cognitive sharpness, memory retrieval, processing speed, and emotional regulation all depend on adequate neuronal hydration. Chronic low-level dehydration in brain tissue, the kind that does not show up as dramatic confusion, but as a subtle fog, a slower word retrieval, a slightly shorter fuse, is a documented contributor to accelerated cognitive aging. Research from the University of Connecticut found measurable impairments in mood, concentration, and cognitive performance in adults who were as little as 1.5% dehydrated at the cellular level. In seniors, whose cells are already less efficient at retaining water, that threshold is easier to cross and harder to recognize. The heart and vascular system are equally affected. Blood that is not properly supported by cellular hydration becomes thicker and more viscous. The heart works harder to push it through narrowing vessels. Blood pressure rises. Clotting risk increases. The cardiovascular system of a chronically dehydrated senior is working harder every single day and showing no obvious symptoms until it does, in the form of a cardiovascular event that seems sudden but has been building for years. Let me tell you about Beverly. Beverly was 68 years old, active, sharp, and baffled. She drank 10 glasses of water a day. She had cut sodium from her diet years ago on her doctor's advice. She took no supplements because she believed a balanced diet was enough. And she had woken up with leg cramps every night for 3 years. Her daughter brought her a printed summary of research on senior electrolyte hydration after watching a video similar to this one. Beverly was skeptical. She felt fine, mostly. The cramps were the main complaint. She started with a simple daily electrolyte supplement containing potassium, magnesium, and a small amount of sodium. She slightly reduced her plain water intake and replaced 2 glasses a day with an electrolyte-supported drink with no sugar. She stopped actively avoiding all sodium and added a small amount of quality sea salt to 1 meal per day. Within 2 weeks, the nighttime leg cramps stopped entirely. Within 4 weeks, she noticed her thinking felt clearer in the afternoon, a fog she had attributed to age that turned out to be cellular dehydration. Within 6 weeks, she told her daughter she felt more energized in the morning than she had in years. Beverly had not been drinking too little water. She had been drinking water without the tools her cells needed to use it. Here is exactly what to do starting this week. First, stop measuring your hydration by glasses of water alone. The number of glasses is not the relevant metric after 60. How your cells are absorbing and retaining that water is what matters. Second, talk to your doctor about testing your potassium and magnesium levels. Specifically, ask for a red blood cell magnesium test, not just a serum magnesium test. The serum test can appear normal when cellular levels are depleted. This distinction is critical, and most doctors will not make it unless you ask directly. Third, if you are on a diuretic for blood pressure or a PPI for acid reflux, have a direct conversation with your doctor about electrolyte replacement. Both of these medications actively deplete potassium and magnesium over time, and that depletion is almost never proactively addressed. Fourth, consider a daily electrolyte supplement with potassium, magnesium, and a small amount of sodium. Not a sports drink loaded with sugar, but a clean electrolyte formulation designed for daily use. This gives your cells the gradient they need to absorb the water you are already drinking. Fifth, do not fear sodium if you are symptomatic. If you are drinking plenty of water, eating a low-sodium diet, and still experiencing dry mouth, brain fog, muscle cramps, or afternoon fatigue, your sodium may be part of the problem, not the solution to avoid. What you have learned today is this. After 60, the thirst mechanism becomes unreliable, and the cellular machinery for absorbing water becomes less efficient. Water alone cannot hydrate your cells without the electrolyte gradient, potassium, magnesium, and sodium that pulls it through the cell membrane. Most seniors are depleted in at least one of these, and many common medications make the depletion worse. The fix is not more water. The fix is smarter hydration that gives your cells what they actually need to use what you are giving them. Comment below and tell me, did you know this before today? And are you going to ask your doctor about your electrolyte levels at your next appointment? If this helped you to understand something you did not know before, please share it with someone over 60 in your life who drinks their 8 glasses every day and still does not feel right. That share could make a real difference for someone who has been looking for this answer for years.